Hello and welcome to another Minecraft time-lapse video. Now in this video, I was originally going to make Talavar, the next god in my pantheon of Azyrin, but I decided to split it into two parts, because of how much time I spent on just the Cathedral, so expect part 2 to come out eventually. Without further ado, let's get into the video. I started off by making a floor plan for my Cathedral. Like my last cathedral, this is a fantasy structure, and therefore not strictly following all the rules of reality. This is particularly evident in the large open crossing area where Talavar will be built later on. It's been a little over a year since I built my last cathedral, and since then, I've joined the Bakery Discord server, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, building-focused Minecraft servers. If you happen to not know about it, they have a handful of verified content creators called Bakers, who are all very good builders in their own right. I mention this because Vahan, one of the bakers who specializes in Gothic builds, has been a very helpful resource for learning cathedral building. I did violate some of her rules in the structure, but even so, I still learned a lot from her building tips. So Vahan, if you're watching this, here's your shout out as promised, and sorry about not following all your recommendations. I genuinely did take everything you said under consideration when building this cathedral. Talavar is the god of death in my pantheon, so I wanted this cathedral to have a grim feeling, like something out of the works of Edgar Allan Poe. I knew I wanted to have the cathedral have a grey palette despite the challenges associated with it. I definitely had to make concessions in terms of my detailing because of that. Now I start the side facade. For this rose window, I initially tried to incorporate wood to allow for more detail like I mentioned, but ultimately thought it looked better without it. If I ever make a third cathedral, I'll probably go for a brighter palette, as it allows for more shaping blocks to be used effectively. That being said, I'm still pretty satisfied with how things ended up here. This portal, which is basically Gothic terminology for the entrance area, is another area that could have benefited from having more detailing blocks available. Fitting these diagonal vaults in with the rest of the structure was an interesting challenge. Although this is a fictional building, the diagonal part was loosely inspired by Ely Cathedral. Since the structure is largely symmetrical, I am able to copy it around the center to create the basic shape. On this facade, I make spiral staircases that go all the way from the floor to the attic. Here I use the revolve command from Archeon to create the buttresses around the apse. It probably would have been easier to do this first, which is just something else I probably could have done differently in hindsight. Now I take the facade I already made and alter it to make the front facade. As you can see, I make a new rose window here as well. At this point I decide there's a lot of bare stone brick sections on the buttresses, so I decide to add a little bit of texturing to them. Here I work on the roof. Cathedral attics have wooden supports inside of them, which is something that makes them notoriously susceptible to fires, so it's a good thing we have fire spread turned off here. I also make a tileable pattern, which I think turned out nicely. I accidentally used the revolve command in a way I wasn't intending to, so I made a bunch of rogue buttresses I had to clean up. I decided to make a tower in the secondary crossing area, but I didn't want to make it too tall as it would block the view of Talavar when he is built. I suppose this is as good a time as any to talk about the elephant in the room with many builders, the download link. I'm still not giving away my downloads at this moment. This may change if I feel like it later. I'll probably talk about my thought process regarding this at a later date. Here I build some radiating chapels. Inside each chapel will be an altar dedicated to an aspect of the god of death. Now I'll work on the towers. I decided that since my cathedral is mostly symmetrical, it'd be interesting to make these towers different, so I based them roughly on Shad's cathedral, whose name is difficult for me to pronounce, so I apologize to any French people who I may have offended. The scaffolding in these belfries were mostly improvised, as I couldn't find a great reference for them, so they probably aren't 100% accurate, but they will have to do. I decided I wanted to swap out the stone brick floor for a darker palette. I also make a similar diamond pattern to the roof. Now I make the altars I talked about earlier. They are the altar of lamentation, where the living come to mourn the dead, the altar of regret, where the dying come to express their life's regrets, the Altar of Winter and Altar of Night, which embody Talavar's role in the day and seasonal cycles, the Altar of Judgment and Altar of Deliverance, where the newly deceased recount their crimes and triumphs, and lastly, the Altar of Ascension, where the dead are journeyed to the underworld. And that about wraps things up. Thanks for watching. I'm definitely no Vahan when it comes to cathedrals, but I hope you like this build regardless. If you enjoyed the video, maybe consider subscribing.